it look like this?
All right. What does it look like?
On my live chat, it in like...
We're on now.
Hello. Okay. I'm good. The witch got me. Let's go. Welcome to Books We Never Read.
Except for those we have.
I'm Nicole.
I'm Jason.
And this is our week 1 discussion of Hurricane Season by Fernanda Melchor. Jor. If this is your first time joining us, you're going to need to stop this podcast. Stop the book club, and you're going to need to go back and read if you can handle it. We'll give you all kinds of explicit warnings for this one. I came out of nowhere. So, we are available on YouTube Music as a podcast if you would like to see us and not hear us. And we've got a lot of stuff playlisted for you. Lots of books to choose from. So, I will kind of... Oh, gosh! So, I will say, you know, like, the book club is not for kids, and we list it like that on YouTube. It's not meant for kids. But we typically keep our language pretty... You could be adjacent to a kid and be listening to the book club, and it would be mostly okay.
This one might be difficult.
Yeah. So if you've got your children with you, you just need to pop your earbuds in. I am fascinated by this book, and it sounds like Peggy is not.
Yeah. Well, let's finish up all the, like, front of the show
So,
things.
yeah. So today we're discussing chapters 1 through 4.
Mm-hmm. There's a syllabus if you want to go find what we need to read. This is a very interesting book for a lot of reasons. It is not for the faint of heart. Hi, Ma.
Sorry.
I'm not. This is good. It's good for everybody. And we are available on YouTube Music as a podcast. Did you say that already?
Yeah, I did.
Okay. Well, I'm just saying it again because we got kind of
fine.
distracted. Cool. Peggy said maybe hit the Flanders panel instead. Oh!
Yeah, no way.
Shots fired.
I really like this book.
Yeah.
I'm glad it's very short. It's very potent.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Let's see, I started this book rather late this week, and I texted Nicole and said, hey, I really like this book. I'd only read like 10 pages, and then it got into like nonstop sexual abuse, and I was like, oh, I need to clarify with Nicole what I like about this book. But before we get into like the context and everything, you know, so this book is written in Spanish, translated into English. It is like a very popular book from like, I don't know, like 2017 or something. You know, it was kind of a hit.
This was?
This was.
Okay.
Yeah. And I read like a bit of the YouTube. I could be misstating some of this stuff. But what I think is interesting about it is for a long time, I couldn't necessarily tell what time period this book was set in. It wasn't until they started mentioning phones, which isn't until like chapter 3, that you can really clearly tell what time period.
And that is a punch in the gut.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because you read this and you're thinking, this must be like the 1930s.
Yes.
The 1920s.
Yes.
And you're like, oh.
It's right now.
It's 2020.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I really... Anyway, but it reads like a novel out of the 1930s. And specifically what I said to you was that it is like one of my favorite novels, Ask the Dust by John Fanta. It reads the same way as sort of like a 1930s, like sort of, I don't know, like post-World War I, pre-World War II, just sort of like poverty, you know, living off the land kind of thing. Like, there are some vibes kind of like... I get some like kind of Steinbeck vibes off of some of this stuff, you know, just about like how some of the characters are and the way they think and talk and things. And anyway, I just love that. I'm absolutely here for that. And I think it's well written. And I think that the author keeps things like that, like what the time period is, on purpose, you know.
I think so too.
And then it, honestly, it kind of reads like a hot mess half the time because it is stream of consciousness. It's a third-person narrator that is stream of consciousness.
From different points of view.
From different points of view. And then halfway through, I think it's chapter 4, all of a sudden, the narrator is talking to a judge, like in court. And it's at that point that all of this like stream of consciousness stuff makes sense, because I think maybe not all of it, but I think a lot of this can be interpreted as people talking to the police and talking to lawyers and things like that. And so they're nervous. And one of my criticisms made early on was that this book is really repetitive, like really repetitive. You get somebody talking about like their auntie for some reason while they're telling you the main story, and then she circles back around and tells you about her auntie, and then comes back again, and it's not even just like telling you the same thing, it's word for word the same thing. And nervous people do that, especially when they're like talking to cops and things like that. And anyway, I kind of interpret some of that repetitiveness as people just like, you know, trying to like shift the focus or whatever as they're going through these sort of situations. Yeah. That was all.
So I had picked this book because it came up a bunch in my searches for what should I read next. And I was looking for books that were like A Murmur of Bees. And there were a couple of other books that I was kind of searching for, other books similar to. And this one just kept popping up. And this is nothing like A Murmur of Bees, except it kind of is. Like, A Murmur of Bees is much lovelier.
Tell me about this book. I don't know anything about it.
A Murmur of Bees?
Right.
This boy ends up underneath a, like, overpass. And so this family takes him in and raises him. And he is kind of like one with the bees. And that's how they found him. He was covered in bees, but he wasn't stung. And so the bees, like, follow him around. And it's a farm in Mexico, like a citrus farm or something like that, and this boy ends up kind of living off the land, and very mystical but also possibly scientific explanations behind things. You know, just very similar, but the storytelling is similar. The way that people talk about each other is kind of similar, but it's not as vulgar and it's not as like harsh as this. There are some harsh truths in A Murmur of Bees. And, like, the harshness of living through a pandemic in Mexico. Because, like, the Black Death or whatever was going around. Was it Black Death? No.
Probably not.
Black Death.
The flu? Like,
yes.
Okay.
Yeah, Spanish flu. That's what it was. So, anyways. So, this is similar, right? Like, it's... the storytelling style is very similar. Trying to figure out, like, what's real and what's not. And the reality that exists underneath all of it. Like, so, and in this book, I think it's very interesting because we have people's points of view, and the people are not reliable. The narrators are not reliable.
Sure, yeah.
And we're hearing about somebody from a lot of other people, just like the nya, the tea that gets spilled about people. But then, the next chapter, you see that person.
Yeah.
And you see what they say about other people, and what they actually experienced when other people were talking about when they saw them wear, and here's what they were actually doing. And so, as a reader, you're concerned, first of all, by the pure amount of abuse that's going on in this community. Like, it's so much. We're also concerned about the cyclical nature of this abuse and poverty and everything else. And we see that cycle over and over and over again. Big witch to little witch.
Grandma to
Jasenia. The kid from his father. I mean, it's just wild.
Yeah. It's not that wild. It's exactly what I would expect. But, like, yeah, but it's unfortunate, right? Like,
to see it all in one spot,
sure.
To be, like, forced to reckon with it, and to try to reason it out, and to reason out the fact that this is happening now.
Yeah.
When everyone should know better.
Oh, I guess I guess I didn't have that thought.
I mean, it's just wild.
Yeah.
So, anyways, this book is not, like, when I pick a book, I don't always read all about it, because I don't want to accidentally, like, spoil the whole, you know, purpose of the book or whatever. I did not know that it was going to be this violent and this vulgar. But I do believe that the, like, themes and the things that are being brought up in the book are really important to hear.
I think what's sticking on the topics of like themes and sort of like the style of it and everything. It's so bleak. And I think oftentimes we will read books that focus on like the positivity, right? Like, and like fantasy is like this, like there's some world and like you're focused on like the kings and the queens and like there's bad guys or whatever, but like, I don't know, right? Like there's like no slavery and like, I don't know, racism isn't really a thing. And like, like you focus on these, and maybe it's in there like a little bit, or so like the other B book we read. What was that?
The other what?
The other B book we read. We read a book about bees.
Oh. Yeah.
About sort of this white girl running away from her family, being raised by these black women that raise bees. Anyway, in that book, like you do get racism and you get darkness, but it's like not all that dark. Like it's not good, but they just like touch on it, right? They don't go all the way in, and there's so much more focus on the positivity and overcoming of barriers. And obviously there's a place for that, and those books make me happy. I feel like this is sort of a inverse of that, where there are positive things probably on some level happening in these people's lives.
Yes.
We're just not going to talk about it.
Well, we're just stuck in this one family. These are all related people.
Yeah, sure. But I mean,
they're all cousins.
Yeah, sure. But it's I think that we're just like highly focused on the negativity, and I think that has value as well, as in the same way as focusing on like positive in a book or whatever. And I'm kind of obsessed with books like this that just go all in, and there's no bones about it. All the bad stuff. We're not going to give you a little bit, just not give you a taste, not make you think about it. We are going to show you,
immerse you in this world, which reminds me of. What's the hurricane book that we read? Salvage the Bones.
Salvage the Bones.
Except we had someone to root for there.
Yeah.
We really rooted for the main girl.
Yeah.
But it was like that. It was just, things are just worse and worse and worse and worse the more you dig into it. And it's like, how do you ever escape this cycle?
Yeah.
And Peggy brings up a great point. They haven't learned yet to make choices for themselves. And so this concept of autonomy is something that pops up a lot in like Mexican and Mexican American literature, and that's not really like what the genre is called. It's just what I've noticed from authors that are like Spanish speaking and write about like places in Mexico and Mexican Americans in America. This idea that they are trapped in this cycle, and that at some point, well, they're like struggling with autonomy. The fact that they feel like all the choices have been made for them, and they are just a product of all these other choices. And at no point do some of the ones that never get out manage to think, I could choose something different, and it would be a struggle, but I could do it. We see in this type of literature those consequences of what happens when that bug never gets in you to step up and make a change.
Yeah. Well, I think what's interesting is I actually do see a lot of autonomy in this book. Most people, I'm gonna exclude Jacinia, right? Jacinia has like an overbearing grandmother who is constantly telling her what to do, but like the kid gets to make his own choices, right? Like he is active. He is quite autonomous. No one is telling him what to do. His father-in-law or whatever, or the uncle-in-law, whatever that dude is, that guy is. So I'll put it this way: the men that we see in this book are quite autonomous, but what we have is a situation where they, more than any other character, more than the female characters, they are able to make choices, but they have not been like taught how to make choices, I guess, or like how to think through these choices, and sort of like what Peggy says, just like think past today and be able to think about the rest of it. And I mean, like, that's a real thing, and this, and you sort of bring up the legacy of colonialism in these areas, and like, what happens when you get this, I mean, and this happened in America, right? So here we go, we have the Civil War, we're going to be like, all right, everybody's free now. And then like, what does that mean? Like, what does that mean? What happens when you have somebody who was born into slavery and is now an adult, and you're just like, all right, man, you're on your own now. They are that person is perfectly capable of making the same choices as everyone else if they have the same sort of, I'm going to call it like background information needed to be able to use that newfound freedom. But if somebody doesn't have that, what are they supposed to do? You know, and that was a real problem that we had, that the United States had to deal with, and that other places have had to deal with, and maybe that everybody hasn't done a great job with. But you can't just wreck somebody's life on repeat and then be like, we're really sorry about that. You're on your own now.
You have everything you need.
There's a responsibility there.
Yeah.
And like, I'm not saying, like, certainly the colonial history of Mexico will play some sort of background role into the kid's current situation, but it is more background than his own parents and by these other things, you know. And you know, what's really interesting about him is his grandmother constantly talks about, like, well, he can go do this because that's what makes a little man out of him. And I don't know, this book, I think what I like about this book is it is what I've been talking about for like a week or two. And I have been mad for like a week or two, and I don't know why, about people being obsessed with being a man, being a woman, being like filling this gender role. And I don't care. And what I want for you to do is for you to say, I'm going to teach my son or my daughter or whatever how to be kind to other people, how to be strong for themselves and for their family, how to make sacrifices for the people around them. And if you teach them these good values, they will become a good little man, a good little woman, whatever. But whenever you skip that step and you're just like, I want them to be this thing, and you don't think about the background information, you get the kid, or you get Jasenia, who might be growing up to be the perfect little recreation of her grandmother, and she is not a good person.
No, she's out there beating her little cousins and stuff.
That part was probably one of my favorite things, because it was so on the nose about the just like this sort of cycle. And it's not that Jasenia is not capable of being better than her grandmother. It's that she's not aware of what the other options are.
Right.
Whenever her grandmother is dying and her like sister is out missing or whatever, her first thought is, I'm going to go get the wet rope, right? Like that's her first, that's where she goes. And, you know, I don't know. I guess this book isn't surprising to me, because this sort of like, first off, this like male attitude about I'm just going to do whatever I want and somebody's going to take care of me is something I am paid to fight every day. And so this book is a little close to home, and I'm not surprised, right? Whenever you're like, I can't believe this is, you know, here we are in 2025. Like, what are I'm not shocked, because this isn't just like something that happens in like, you know, a poverty-stricken area of Mexico. This is happening down the street.
It's crazy.
Yeah. And but what it is that these people who find themselves in these situations, even if they want to do better, because I do think Jasenia wants to do better, she's not aware of what the options are. Or if she knows vaguely what the options are, there's no background about how to get there. In the same way of like, okay, you're free now, go do that. Like, what does that mean? How do I get there? You know, how do I find a job? How do I get, you know, a house? How do I, you know, all this stuff.
So this like toxic masculinity concept in like Mexican American literature, and this genre is machismo. Yeah. So this book also really reminds me of House on Mango Street, which is a book that I'm obsessed with. It's a series of motifs told from the point of view of a little girl that grows up on this street, and each little chapter is just a little vignette. It's like a little half pager, and it's just a little insight into the community. And you see it from the point of view of like a junior high aged kid. So like if I were a college English professor, I would have my students read House on Mango Street and then have them read this. Because this is, so like in House on Mango Street, there's hope. At the end, she sees these issues, and she's going to leave Mango Street, and she's going to become something, and she's going to come back, and she's going to fix it.
Yeah.
Well, what happens when it never gets fixed? That's what we're reading today.
Yeah.
So it's so gross. And like the like self-fulfilling nature of all of this, you know, you treat women like trash and you call them all these names, and then you send them out to go make money,
Or you're like, please love, could I have some dinner or whatever, right? Like look, I'm going to tell you something. This is normal. It would utterly horrify you to see the way that, obviously not all men, I'm not doing this, but the way that some men that are in this situation, in this country, in this state, in this city, will talk to their wives, their girlfriends, their moms, cuss them like a dog, and then be like, love you, babe, could you send me $30? I see this so much, and it's so gross. And so I'm going to come to something Peggy said. She's like, all these women taking care of this boy and him being dependent on them, that's not autonomy. I don't disagree, but it's autonomy in the same, it's weird, right? Like he's impoverished. He is, he's ignorant of the way that he is affecting all these people, but it's like being the master of a house in like the Roman Empire, right? Like that guy is autonomous, right? He gets to run his little kingdom the way he wants to. But if all his servants and slaves left, he would have no idea how to feed himself and how to run a bath and how to do all these things. Is he autonomous? No. But is he like the most autonomous? Yes. And this guy's like a little king. And that's one of these things that you see in sort of this thing, right? When you can't imagine what else is possible for yourself, in a weird way, you have made it to the top, right? You don't see where else you could go. So like, I have made it, right? Like I am the best thing that has ever happened. And that is part of this weird little, pit that people fall into because it reinforces this idea, Yeah.
Okay, so the one time Louise May went to the witch.
It's a me, Louise.
Because Cherubella, or whatever her name is, was taking him there to get cleansed.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
He said he didn't want the little gay guy to touch him. He said there's a little gay guy under that veil. What?
Yeah. I'm not really sure what's going on there, and maybe we get some more clarity. Number one, it's possible that it was just the current witch, and he just mistook her to be a man.
Right.
I think what's also interesting is, like, I don't know, maybe, there has become this sort of morphing of the young witch into the old witch, and there's no difference. And like, this sort of thing is, I don't know, this sort of thing happens, right? Where this person has taken on this, it's become an icon. It's not a person anymore. It's something else. And maybe at some point it was a man. Or maybe the point of saying that is like, look, it doesn't matter, right? Like, it doesn't matter if it is a man or a woman. It is because they are a symbol. But
no, they completely dehumanized the witch.
Yeah. Well, and that's the point of sort of the veil and all that, right? Like, it's, it is dehumanizing. So.
Right. The witch never lifts the veil. We know that witch number 1 was crazy.
Probably.
And, I mean, they have, like, crap, like...
Oh, I'm not disagreeing. I'm just saying like, probably.
And, like, abused this girl wherever she came from. Maybe the witch raised her as a girl and she wasn't a girl. Like, who knows? No one knows where this kid came from. Yep. They thought she died. And then, because she was, like, real frail as a kid.
Yeah. I don't know. I think it's... I don't know. I'm not sure that it matters.
Right.
That statement matters. It's
matter.
weird because it jumps out. But, like, Louise Me is okay with assaulting somebody if they're a woman.
Right.
He's not going to do it if it's a man.
Well, but he didn't go to have sex with the witch. He went.
I think that's what the cleansing is.
Oh,
that's the point.
You think so?
Yes, that's kind of. I think that's kind of.
I thought that was like the tinctures and the potions and the above board stuff that the witch originally started with.
Yeah, I don't know.
And basically giving women the abortion. Drug.
Yeah.
For when men abuse them.
Yeah.
That's how OG witch started.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. I don't know.
Yeah. and then it was the younger witch that started maybe paying the boys.
That part is confusing
That's
too.
so confusing.
Yeah. I think part of it is just like this sort of like, I don't know.
I think it's a rumor. I think it's like fake, and it's a justification for the boys' actions.
Yeah. I mean, like, it seems to be that people go up into this house and abuse somebody.
Right.
I don't know that we have any evidence that she has ever paid anybody.
Right.
We do at one point see things from her point of view, the young witch's point of view. And so I guess we do have reason to think that she's definitely a lady. But, she is watching the boys and is, like aroused by seeing them because she has like no experience with that. And it's not uncommon. There's really kind of two ways you go when you're abused or sexually abused as a child. There's one way you like totally shut down, and the other way is like you go all the way. And you don't really understand where the boundaries are or could be. And so it's possible we're seeing that. It doesn't explain the money thing. But you're right. I think a lot of this is just people justifying what they go up there and do, and it may not be real,
Yeah. The whole, like, starting of the abusing of the witch was a frustrating train wreck to watch. Her husband dies. They immediately think that she's done it. And they're like, well, look, she's not coming down to the town, and she's wasting away, so she must have done it. She's not coming down to the town because y'all are accusing her of killing somebody, and now she's, like, starving to death in her little house, and then people go in and rape her. What?
It's just the whole concept of like witchery is fascinating, and like you can't escape, right? Yeah, I mean, like Monty Python.
There was nothing she could do.
Yeah, like if you float, you're a witch. If you sink, you're a witch. Right? and like that's supposed to be humorous, but it's dark humor because that's the way it is, or that's the way it has been. And it's kind of wild. Like, you want to talk about wild, the fact that we're still like doing witches here in 2017 or whatever, right? Like, that's wild. But I don't know. I think the whole witch symbol is very interesting because she is both she is like all things for this town. She is the other that brings plague and death and helps the hooker at the highway steal your man, but she's also the person that will listen to you silently when you tell her how he abused you. She is all things, and especially to these women. She not so much to the men, and like there might be an argument to be made that like, in being all things, by being abused by the men of the town, there are other women who are now not being. And like, I'm not sure that that's happening. I think they're abusing everybody, but like, maybe, like, at least not today or whatever. It's really crazy.
There's just so much to unpack.
Yeah.
Going back to check my notes.
This whole thing with like Louise Me's girlfriend going to the hospital, and then they're like, no, we're going to take this child away from you because like it's so interesting to me, and because I see this all the time. People who have been abused as children in whatever way will often grow up to be abusers, and I don't really have a good answer for why that is, other than just like we learn by mimicry. And so at some point that Norma, at some point that mimicry comes back out, and it's and we see the same thing with Justinian with the rope. That is just mimicry.
Can we talk about the fact that like Chabella's missing? She's missing. He's like, oh, she's just been out working with a client. And he's like, oh, she's been with this client for 3 days. She's on some kind of coke bender.
Yeah, she's dead.
She's missing.
Yeah.
He went to the hotel where she often is, and he went to her work where she is, and she's neither of those places.
Yeah.
Boy, call the cops.
Yeah.
Your wife is missing. Stupid.
And I get like he's disabled, and he's like being used it's like a political puppet. Like this is weird.
That was weird.
Yeah.
And now he's the getaway driver in a murder.
Yeah. Well, so what's interesting is the whole like little politics detour is actually kind of interesting because what it's like at first you're like, why am I reading this? And then you realize that like these people who are supposed to be elected, we're talking about autonomy, talking about trying to like choose your own path forward. They have a democracy. They have a similar government to what we have. And the idea is that you are supposed to have a voice in how things go forward. But what if nobody taught you how to have that voice? No, but what if nobody is helping to educate you about, like, here are the real options you've got? Because what's happening is the people that are supposed to be helping him are helping him get booze money for today so that they can get elected. Mm-hmm. And then they're not coming back. They're not helping him. He's not helping himself. And I recognize that I keep saying this, like, what does it even mean to show somebody how to help themselves? Because honestly, today, somebody's going to tell you that you're indoctrinating them. And I don't know what to do about that, But, like, when you were a teacher, if you were trying to show somebody, here are the options, mm-hmm. like, here's the way the world could be. Here's the way the world has been. Some parent is going to call up there mm-hmm. and say that you're indoctrinating their kid. And indoctrination does happen. But usually it's the person who's pointing the finger. In my opinion. But, like, what's the difference between that and education? And who gets to decide what is education? And I'm not sure there's a right answer, so I'm not sure I care. I'm just going to do what I think is best. And everybody else is too. And so I think it's kind of a fake question. It doesn't matter. But these people are certainly not helping,
This is a lot. It's a heavy read. I'm glad it's short.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. A lot going on here. It'll be interesting to see where it goes.
Right. Well, because now we know that he killed her.
Pretty much, yeah.
Either he or the other little cousin that was with him.
And like, it's possible that she wasn't dead when they dragged her out of the house.
Well, no, because they, like, slit her throat at some point. Oh, no, because she was talking in the van.
Yeah.
Yeah. She wasn't dead yet.
Yeah.
And so we think that he just did this in a fit of rage over losing his girlfriend and the girlfriend's baby.
I don't know.
This book is wild. It's so interesting, but it's so terrible. Mm-hmm. It's just a train wreck.
I'm not trusting the hat to pick the next book. I think I'm going to pick myself. And I'm probably picking sci-fi or something.
Well, the hat didn't pick this one. I did.
I know, but like, I got to get off the planet for a minute. I gotta go somewhere else.
Yeah.
We will be announcing the next book today.
But I mean, like, purpose of, like, literature and stuff is what we're getting into.
Yeah.
Like, showing us stuff we don't want to see.
Yeah. I think, and it's okay, so Peggy says it's not about losing the girl, it's about helping trap the girl trap him with the witchcraft, right? Like, the reason I think that he goes to see the witch is because of this, like, jar.
The thing he found.
Yeah.
He heard Louise me say something about, like, oh, she's put a spell on you.
Yeah.
So he's not even autonomous of his own.
First off,
wick dipping.
First off, autonomy is a myth. Like, heads up. Like, and we've talked about this a lot before, but, like, I'm not here for the whole, like, free will thing. I don't even know what that means, right? Like, there are all these influences, and you are, I mean, like, it's not truly free. And there are some people who are, like, maybe more free, right? They are more. Autonomy is a scale that does not end at, like, 100%. That's not real, And there's no 0%. That's not real either. And we all exist between, like, the 10 and 80.
He's out here abusing this 13-year-old, and then accusing the 13-year-old of trapping him in with some witchcraft.
In saying that people are not autonomous, I do not mean that they are not responsible for their actions.
I'm not arguing with you. I'm just yelling.
Yeah. He's responsible. I'm on board, because if you say that somebody is not responsible for their actions, but they are out here abusing children.
Yes. Louise me's the kid. Sorry.
Yeah.
Moonra's
the one who said, like, well, what if she put a witch?
Stepfather. Yeah. Sorry.
But like, if somebody's not responsible for their actions and they do violence, then they are much more likely to do that violence again than if they are responsible. So.
Peggy, you're really good with the characters straight.
Very good with the characters.
It's just so frustrating that these men are committing the violence, then claiming that they are the victims of these wily women, and then the women end up impregnated and murdered over it.
I think what I like about this book is that and like, this might be bad, I'm sorry, I see this as just like cold truth.
Yeah, it makes me so mad.
And I think what I like about this book is I think that it's enlightening in a way that, like, and we've talked about this a couple times, but I feel like a lot of people I talk to just never get to see this. And maybe I just take it for granted, I don't know. But like, this is not fake.
Yeah.
There's so much of this, and maybe I think there's more of it than there is. Like, I get that too.
Well, because you have a saturated population of it. But how much of it's going on that's never caught?
Sure.
You know, it just, gosh. And like, I mean, I say I'm shocked. I know this stuff exists, but to have to face it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I know this is everywhere. I know it is. And it is interesting that, like, with this being set in another place, you could be like, oh gosh, they're so superstitious. No, superstition is everywhere. And people blame the devil for all kinds of things that human beings do.
Oh, yeah.
No matter what flavor of superstition or, religion you label it as. It's used as a...
Yeah. Well, when you blame the devil, you can feel like it's something that you wouldn't do. It's something the devil does. And then you can do anything to the person doing it because you're fighting against
the devil.
The king of hell, instead of just like somebody that could have been you, that could have been your family, that could have been whatever,
Okay, I'm worried about Chabella, though.
Fair enough.
I need to know where my girl is. I hope she just got out of there.
And I just see so many parallels also between this and the last book we just read, The Nightingale, with these men running around doing this thing, right? They're like living this myth of running things and being little kings, and it doesn't matter who they hurt,
Yep, Peggy. Yup. Just, it's a scapegoat. It's something that they've dehumanized and can throw all of their bad behaviors on.
Well, and in talking about not recognizing what the possibilities are, all these women, all of the women know that the men go and do this.
Yeah.
And they don't stop them. They kind of think it's normal, right? For some of them, it's sort of like a rite of passage or whatever. And again, it's one of those things where like they don't imagine like, well, what if we didn't do this, right? What if all the ladies in town just got together and were like, we're not doing this, and we'll like fight you all one at a time, to make you stop, like
all the women band together to kill all the men.
Yeah, like that sounds crazy, but like, it's possible, It's not like they're doing anything, the men, in this particular story. There's other guys in this town, I'm sure, that go to work and do things and are not doing this.
Good, healthy people in relationships.
But that's not what we're talking about today.
No. Yeah. We're just all up in this one family's business, and they are a wreck.
I don't know. I think if and I don't necessarily know much about this author or about this book, but whenever you are trying, if this book is saying like, look, we've got a problem, I want to like show this problem and talk about tackling this problem, I see no reason whatsoever to sugarcoat it. I see no reason whatsoever to like put the positivity in. I see no reason to balance it out with Jose, who lives down the street and is a nice guy and goes to church and has kids that he doesn't abuse. He's out there. But it doesn't matter. It's not what we're here to talk about. And I do a similar speech in prison sometimes where I'm like, you might have been good at some things. I don't care. That's not what we're here to do.
Right.
We're here to talk about the bad stuff. And that's what we're going to do.
Phew. So, it's a tough read. And it makes me angry. But it doesn't make me angry in the way that, like, Flanders Panel made me angry. Flanders Panel made me angry because the author is an idiot. This book makes me angry because it's making me come face to face with reality.
Yeah. Fair enough.
That's where I see it.
Yeah, so there are, like, if we're going to do Flanders Panel, there are some, like, interesting parallels here, I think, right? Like, the whole point of Flanders Panel, hey, if you haven't read Flanders Panel and you want to, don't. But also, stop now, because I'm going to ruin the ending for you.
Yeah, if you do want to read it. Don't read it.
Don't. If... The whole point is that the murderer is doing these things, like, because he is gay, right? Like that's kind of the point, you know? And that's what's weird about it, is like, why? What does that mean? But, you know, so again, it's sort of this thing about his nature. It's about a time, like, he doesn't have these choices. He is a gay guy, so he does this murder or whatever, you know? And it's sort of about, it's sort of the same thing, right? Like, it's not holding him responsible because of who he is and whatever, in the same way that, like, these dudes and their moms and grandmas aren't holding them responsible for whatever actions they do, I guess.
Okay, Peggy, I think I'm just now picking up on what you're saying. Are you, like, reading the written book and there's just no periods in all this stream of consciousness? Because in the audiobook, it sounds like there's periods.
The audiobook is... I do want to go and take a look at the written one, because I am also doing audiobook on this one. And it is blasting through things. And especially when they get to, like, the parts where the radio is playing, I'm just like, what is going on? It's like singing in Spanish at you.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I kind of want to go figure out what those songs are also.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm just listening to it. So, okay, listening to it also made me wonder, like, I wanted to go into the text, but realized I didn't have it. So, we know that chapter 4 is narrated by Munra, or from his point of view. And chapter 3 is Jasenia. Chapter 2 is Little Witch.
Yes.
But what's chapter 1?
I don't remember anymore. But I think I had a guess for it. And I think it was maybe the kid. I'll have to go back and double check that. But I seem to remember thinking that it was the kid. No. It was somebody who had, like, found the witch's body, right? Like, it was just somebody.
Okay.
You know,
Gotcha.
it was just sort of like laying the groundwork for, like, we found this dead body on here or whatever.
And explaining that this witch is not the original witch.
That might have been in part 2.
Okay.
Chapter 1 is 50 seconds long.
Okay.
Like, it's very
yeah,
very short.
that's right. That's right. Yeah. Well, and so with this punctuation situation, that might be more kind of support for the fact that this is, like, testimony.
Yeah.
That these are notes somebody's taken on other people's commentary on what's happened.
Well, even just, like, in your own thoughts, you know, or if you've ever watched somebody who is, like, in this situation write, they write like this. You know, it's just, there's no concept really of, like, I'm going to make 3 paragraphs and then, like, here's the point, right? Like, it's, these people aren't, the people in this story are not, like, communicatively healthy. Let's put it that way, right? And so they're just, like, saying it and they're repeating it, and it's going over and over and over again, and I find it very true to life, I think.
Thanks, Peggy. Real MVP over here.
Real MVP. Since this book club is just the 3 of us hanging out today. We appreciate your help. So.
Oh.
Anyway, we can take a look at it later.
It's not letting me open it. It'll take more than a click. Thank you.
Yeah. But so I'll say this again. I have often complained that I don't like books that are too close to home for me. This should, by all rights, be the greatest offender that we've ever had. Because y'all remember I complained a lot about, like, Well Met. I felt like Well Met was too close. And this is light years closer than Well Met. But,
well, Well Met's like what you see every day. It's the kind of, like, just overbearing...
Yeah.
Not aware of where your hands are.
But that's also just not true. I don't see that every day. I see this every day.
Yeah.
And I really do think I enjoy this book. But I enjoy it for the style and sort of the prose and like I say before, like this sort of jives with a style and, like, a bleakness that I really enjoy, right? I'm a huge fan of Lost Generation stuff, and this has that feel to it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, because these people will all destroy themselves, especially at the rate that they're doing drugs.
Yeah.
And this will be an absolute lost generation. I mean, if you think about Jasenia, the kid, all those little cousins, they've all been brought up in this cycle of abuse.
Yeah.
They will never have a proper childhood. And unless they fight for it, they're not going to have a happy adulthood.
Yeah. Well, like, let's think back to the last book, The Nightingale, and think about Julian, like OG Julian, the father, you know? And so I'm not sure the whole idea of like French lost generation, but that's what he was. And and how different is he from some of the characters in this story? Right. He's not all that. I mean, he's not molesting anybody, as best we can tell. But like, until he sobers up and starts enjoying some resistance, he is one of these characters.
He still abandoned his kids.
Yeah, it's the trauma of. You know, people think that like you get PTSD from war and stuff like that, but most PTSD happens on the street in front of your house every day with normal stuff. And the point being is that the result between Julian and, let's say, Munra or somebody is not sufficiently different, you know?
Yeah.
Of all the books we've read, I agree. This one's violent and gross and weird. This is one of my favorite discussions we've ever had.
Yeah.
I'm enjoying this.
Did not mean to pick something that's so violent. I would never. But
here we are.
Here we are, and it's still a good read.
Yeah.
It's fascinating and horrifying. I think it gave me bad dreams. So there's that. My dreams were very like cyclical, and I couldn't get out of them, and frustrating things were happening that I couldn't stop. You know, like a fever dream, but created from listening to this all night. You
know, I'm really fascinated. I like Carl Jung. I think he's interesting, and like the whole idea of like archetypes and myths, and I buy into absolutely all of it. I think he's right about so much stuff. However, I think that it is unhelpful, and I think that for most people, they're not at a level. Maybe I'm not. I don't know. I think most people are not at a level to like process the idea of like, you know, the cyclical nature of our lives and cycles of violence and things like they're trying to eat, man, right? Like they're trying to like find their wife so they can get their money from her doing whatever out on the highway, so they can like have booze for today, right? Like you can't have it both ways, you know. And it takes a very privileged, secure person to be able to sit down and think like, here is the myth that here's the story that I am living out, because I think he's right. We are all doing that. And I think what's really great about literature like this is that it puts these myths and cycles and archetypes front and center in a way that you can look at them and maybe sort of start to become aware of them in your own life, you know. That's all. All right. Go finish the book.
Happy reading.
See you next week. We will be.
It's time to pick the next book.
Yeah, it is. We will. I'll figure something out.
Get us a good one.
It's gonna be dark.
No.
I wish like comedy books were a thing. I don't find books to be that funny. You know what I mean? Like it's not the right medium for like real humor. I don't think. But I'd like a comedy book.
But like a rom-com, you could find something like that.
I'm not here for that.
I need essence of Project Hail Mary and Children of Time. I need a third book that's in that vein.
I'll figure it out. I will figure it out. Have faith. Or will I continue the cycle of violence? And will I pick a book?
Well, and like... So Long and Thanks for All the Fish.
Yeah.
That's funny.
Yeah.
There's satire, I guess. Literature. Books.
I need Bullet Train as a book.
Ah, I love Bullet Train.
So good.
That's one of my favorite movies.
It doesn't matter. Anyway.
Alright, well. Can't spell treason without T. Yeah, and Peggy has twice now said, Children of Time too.
I have been told several times that the book is not good.
I think Peggy's read it.
Oh, okay. Maybe it's the third one. Anyway, a friend of mine who joined the book club and has been reading along with us was reading those, and he was very disappointed by one of the ones afterwards. So. No, but Tchaikovsky has several other books that aren't in the same
Not
vein.
the same, like, universe or whatever.
Or like maybe we do a Brandon Sanderson again, right? Tress of the Emerald Sea was
So
hot.
good.
I think everybody loved that one.
So good.
Yeah. Anyway,
Oh, a tiny bit.
gotcha.
Showed
All right.
a tiny bit. Okay. Well, thanks for playing along. One thing I didn't say at the beginning, but if you catch us on the replay, please chat us up in the discussion box.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't trust him. Who don't you trust, Peggy?
My friend.
Oh! I was like, oh my God. Yeah, Brandon Sanderson is a yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
We'll figure something out.
We'll be back soon.
All right. See you next week.
Happy reading.
Bye.